Good evening, everyone. My name is Henan Li. I'm co-founder and vice president of the Research Triangle AI Society. So when you step into this room, you may think that Dr. Raven Zhang will be the host tonight, but unfortunately you get me, you're stuck with me tonight because Dr. Zhang unfortunately is a little bit under the weather, but she is here. She just has a very hoarse voice, so she elected to let me take the hosting chair at this moment. But no worries, we're going to go ahead and kick off this chat. And as we wrap up an extraordinary year for AI, we wanted to kind of create a space for a thoughtful, candid kind of conversation. We want a conversation that goes beyond headlines and hype to kind of reflect what actually mattered in 2025 to each of us and what's coming next in 2026. So tonight we're very fortunate to be joined by an outstanding group of leaders spanning academia and industry, each bringing their own distinct perspective from edge computing and efficient AI systems to multimodal models and reasoning agents to real-world enterprise deployment of large-scale models. So we'll begin with very brief introductions and a one-on-one question for each panelist. And then we'll open things up in the second segment to a more free-flowing group discussion. We'll encourage everyone to jump in that segment and to react and to challenge each other if you can. And last but not least, we'll have a Q&A with the audience participation. So we just want to kind of have this opportunity to host this fire chat in the sense that we want an honest and reflective and forward-looking conversation because we have seen this year, we have seen a lot of hype, we've seen a lot of information going around. There's overwhelming amount of information. We just hope that this conversation will spark new ideas, healthy debate, and maybe even a little bit of clarity as we head into 2026. So let's get started. All right, so I want to introduce each panelist tonight. We have Dr. Yiran Chen. He is the John Koch Distinguished Professor of Electrical and Computer Engineering at Duke University and the Director of the National Science Foundation AI Institute for Edge Computing, known as Athena. And jumping in and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Chen. We did some research on your background, but feel free to jump in. He is a globally recognized leader in AI hardware, neuromorphic computing, and next-generation memory technologies. With more than 700 publications, 96 US patents, and fellowships across AAAS, ACM, IEEE, and NAI. That's a lot of acronyms, by the way. Professor Chen brings both deep technical insight and a big picture perspective on where AI systems are headed and how they will be built in the years to come. So welcome, Dr. Chen.
Okay.
So we have a quick question for you. Your work spans hardware, embedded systems, and AI at the edge. From your perspective, how is edge computing most fundamentally changing the way AI gets deployed in the real world? And for practitioners and enthusiasts who want to start building AI applications that are truly taking advantage of edge capabilities, what practical advice would you offer to them at this moment in time?
Okay. So thanks so much, by the way, for the introduction about me. Next time we'll make sure I will send you a shorter version of my bio.
Thank you.
Yeah. I received the questions you gave to me before this webinar, so I was thinking about what I can talk. So for the people who are not familiar with edge AI, edge computing means that we're going to process the data where the data is generated. Okay. So there are multiple reasons for this. The common reasons are, for example, the data privacy, because you do not want to share the data outside the devices. Another one is actually the late latency of processing the data, because you are not able to afford, to send the data to the cloud and process the data, send them back. So one um, obvious example is an autonomous driving car. So that's be
Mm-hmm.
one thing. The edge AI obviously means, we're gonna apply the AI technology on the edge to make sure we have, the stronger, capability to process the data. In terms of, the use of AI or on the edge, basically everything you can see surrounding you in your daily life can be considered as edge devices. They
Mm-hmm.
can be as small as wearable devices, and a medical device, the cell phone, such as such, can be as large as autonomous driving car. Believe it or not, the Tesla can be considered as, part of this edge devices, because they carry on, the AI capability to process the data in the local. So edge device also, often requires a coordination between the edge device and the data cloud, because in many cases, they're not be able to, solely process the information at the edge, required the support from the cloud. And also one, the large sector of edge devices will be the robotics. Okay, so because you need to process everything at the local, even without the support from the internet. In terms of the application of the edge AI or anything else, which people want to start with this application, there are a couple requirements you can consider. The first one is how much, the resources you have at edge, because in most of the cases you may not really have, sufficient computing power, the memory, even, the power a basket, which will allow you to compute those things. So make sure, you have, the readable size of the neural network or anything else can run on these devices, and also can, sustain for sufficiently long time, with, for example, the battery to power the device. Another thing is that, you also need to support the large variety of the data and also the devices. So we call this as a heterogeneity. You have the heterogeneity in terms of the data you're going to process. So some people call it multimodality or such and such, and all called the heterogeneity in the devices. You have a lot of sensors, computing resources, also on the first, which you need to support. And you may want to support a larger variety of those devices. And the third one is the heterogeneity of the models, because there could be multiple models running on those devices. So, one important example is we call the VRA, the visual language action models, which are widely used in the robotics. So they have all the different types of the model running on all the different devices. It can be very large, as well as, the tens of billion parameters, or as small as, just less than 1 billion parameters. You want to make sure those things will be able to run simultaneously. So those are the general concerns that we could, in the edge devices. I'm probably going to just stop here, because we can continue to talk about, how we can implement this as such and such, but I will give the opportunity to some other speakers to continue, their expertise. So I will stop.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So next we have Mr. Jeff Torello. Jeff has over 30-year career in technology. And forgive me if I am having trouble with my notes here, but I do know that I do know that you have a podcast on YouTube, and you have your startup as Sinjun AI, and as a
Yes.
play on your last name. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so actually the mascot for Sinjun AI is is a space bull, which I know makes no sense at all. But my last name in Italian actually means young bull, which is where the bull part comes from. And if you look at my
Okay.
background, you might catch the drift that I'm sort of into space. So that's where that piece comes from. Sinjin
Mm-hmm.
itself is just an interesting name with a really short set of letters I could make a domain out of, because I'm a nerd. And I think one of the things that was in the bio that was probably relevant is that I spent 20 years working for Intel, corporation in a lot of engineering and leadership roles. And so that's probably somewhat relevant to the conversation at hand.
Yes, and you also bring history, working. You have been working as a system security professional. Is that right as well? That's part.
Yeah, I'm a CISSP, so a certified cybersecurity professional, and then I've been a CTO for a number of startups. Some of them working in the DoD space or defense contracting kind of stuff. So, kind of all over the place. Did a lot of IoT work too for Intel, but we're not here to talk about me.
So speaking of what we're talking about, with your experience in the industry for over 30 years, how do you see today's like rapid transformation and advancement in AI compared to earlier trends or shifts that you have seen over the years?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, fundamentally, I believe AI is an inflection point in the industry for sure. I think there's a strategic capability moving forward that I don't think goes away. There's a lot of news and hype about a bubble. I think the technology behind AI is real. I don't think that that's a bubble. I think there's a lot of frenzied investment and a lot of startups and things that sort of mirror the dot-com boom in the 2000s, early 2000s, late 90s, and that's fine. But fundamentally, what we've been doing at Sinjun for the last 18 to 24 months, helping clients actually try to take advantage of AI in the real world. I see some pretty significant capability and some differentiators that I think are unique in the world of technology innovation. And so, one of the first is that I think this technology kind of benefits greenfield even more than brownfield. And what I mean by that, if folks aren't sort of familiar with this phrasing, is if you're new or a startup or you're entering the space and you don't have a lot of legacy baggage to drag with you, I think you have an advantage. I think existing enterprise customers can take advantage of AI, and I would never say they can't, but there's a hurdle. There's a little bit of complexity there. And sometimes redoing process can take longer than implementing the AI, but you may not be able to take advantage of the AI if you don't redo the process. And so that's the first piece that I think is kind of integral, that early startups probably have an advantage and actually have a competitive advantage against an incumbent. That's piece one. Piece two is I actually think a small and nimble organization utilizing AI probably has an even bigger advantage than a large, slow to move, slow to process, like an enterprise in that context. And so I think that there's this David and Goliath model that's been around for a long time that I believe AI really helps give the smaller, entrant more capability faster with less resource, with less complexity. And I'm very curious to see how that turns out. I think, as I mentioned, there's this flurry of investment and people talking about a bubble, but as that consolidation happens, and it always happens, if you look at the history of, tech innovations, there's always a consolidation effort. But once that takes place, I still think that there's this really compelling capability and actual implementing of AI that brings to the fore functionality we haven't had in the past. Hopefully that helps answer the question.
Absolutely. And I will highly recommend everybody to check out Jeff's podcast on YouTube. It's called AI for Business Owners, if I'm not mistaken. It has a lot of interesting conversations with business leaders and what's happening on the ground. So definitely do that. All right. So next we're fortunate to have Dr. Mohit Bansal join us from UNC. He is the John R. and Louise S. Parker Distinguished Professor and Director of the Merge Lab. So he is also an ACL and AAAI Fellow and recipient of the Presidential Early Career Award for Scientists and Engineers. Congratulations. He has received outstanding paper awards at major conferences including ACL, CVPR, EACL, and more. If you're like me, you don't know any of those acronyms, that's okay. Just Dr. Bansal has published a lot. So his research expertise is in natural language processing and multimodal machine learning. He also is very well known for his influential work on reasoning agents, multimodal generation, and interpretable deep learning. So again, congratulations for being named an RTAI and ACL Fellow in 2025. What a remarkable honor and well-deserved recognition for your contributions to AI and natural language processing. So we're wondering, from your vantage point, what is one trend in AI today that you think is overhyped? And one development that you feel is underappreciated? So overhyped and underappreciated. But
yeah, thanks for the kind introduction. And in terms of the acronyms, maybe just for context, so CVPR is probably the top like computer vision conference if people are interested in right, anything related to image processing and video generation, right, all of that. And then ACL is similarly the premier venue for any NLP research where, right, a lot of ground work for LLMs and related work happened. So definitely check out the proceedings, right, of these kinds of conferences to keep in touch with the latest work. Yeah, so coming back to your interesting question, I think there are several maybe examples of this, but in interest of time, let me choose one. So I feel like something overhyped that probably a lot of you would agree with is the word agent. I think everything on the planet is an agent right now. Anything with a LLM behind it becomes an agent in our right sort of yeah, all around us, right? Like blogs, papers, podcasts. So I think that word has been overhyped a lot, and something that's underappreciated that I think will become much more important and mainstream soon is maybe the true definition, right, of what an agent is. And those will include things like having much more, like your model having much more interactions with the world and the environment around it, which in turn, right, gives a state representation, right? And the idea is that the state representation will keep changing because the agent, right, takes some actions in the environment or the world around it and, right, has some outputs, which in turn will change its state representation. So basically this eventually, right, has to become more long term, and there has to be some notion of memory, which will become much more important again, right, over these long sequences of states, right, which is what makes which will make us have more true agents, right, and which will also help us bring out more important capabilities from these agents as compared to what we've seen so far, right, which are single shot interactions or very short term interactions. And so this will actually end up creating and connecting to a lot of important properties, like I said, in terms of long-term memory, even things like long-term reputation, multi-agent collaboration can be much deeper when we have more true agents. And then if you go even deeper, right, this will bring out even bigger capabilities in whether it's in terms of safety of AI, right, things like deception, trust, secrecy, right, these things will become very crucial soon. You also, another overhyped term is something related called self-refinement, where everything seems to be self-refining these days. That's almost like a holy grail, right? Most of that is like overhyped right now. But I think if we start building the more true definition of agents, things like self-refinement, right, will also become more true and more crucial soon. And I think another very underhyped but very crucial thing is out of domain generalization capability testing, right, where most of our agents and models that we are building are all very overfitted, right, to the tasks that we want them to look good on, right, whether it's for VC money or for papers or whatever. So I think if we want true agent sort of capabilities, more pressure and more importance has to be given to true out of domain, right, unseen generalization tests for these agents. So I think on the evaluation side, that's what I will end with, right, that there has to be that's underappreciated right now, but it will be much more crucial very soon.
Thank you. I was going to say some of these are pretty spicy takes, but I think at the end, I'm hearing pretty balanced and nuanced take from you. So thank you again for that. And last but not least, we have Mr. Kevin Alwell coming to us from OpenAI. Mr. Alwell is a technical go-to-market leader at OpenAI and a seasoned enterprise AI practitioner specializing in large-scale adoption and AI-powered software deployment. He previously served as Director of Solutions Engineer at GitHub, is a frequent speaker at major industry events, including Microsoft Build and GitHub Galaxy, and is an author and contributor to the OpenAI Cookbook. Kevin brings deep practical insight into how organizations successfully move AI from experimentation to production. So welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Dr. Lee.
So what I wonder from your perspective is you work closely with businesses and developers over the years, and based on what you've seen in the real world, right? What workflows or best practices most effectively help developers, help businesses leverage LLMs and coding agents? And what is one common mistake teams keep making when they try to integrate those tools into their development process?
Yeah. Well, just before I answer your question, I will go back to it. I do also want to just take a rare opportunity to thank someone here who is Mr. Golang Chow. And the reason I want to thank him is because actually Chow, as I affectionately referred to him as for many years, was my mentor when I was first in college as a software developer. We sat 2 feet away from each other. And just to give you an idea of the level of incompetence that he was dealing with then, one of the first tasks that he assigned me to do was actually, there's like some failing unit test on some web app we were working on together. And I followed the stack trace all the way through this app, and I finally found where this error was coming from, which was the failing test itself. So what do? I delete the failing test, and voila, the test suite passes, obviously. And so I just want to say, Chow, thank you so much for for taking the time to invest in me early in my career, and it's a unique privilege to see you again many years later. So thank you for that. Great, and so thank you for that indulgence, friends. So again, just going back to so your question was like, what are developers, or how is AI integrating in developer workflows in ways that's actually increasing velocity, better outcomes, and then what are some common pitfalls? I think maybe we can answer that question all together, which is I think the best practice that I've seen, and I was kind of at GitHub at a unique time, right? 2023. Was GitHub Copilot had just come out. We're using OpenAI Codex model under the hood, and AI pair programming was not a thing yet. And at that point in time, code completion was kind of the earliest way that it manifested, and it was probably like 25% better than what IntelliJ offered out of the box in terms of the completion percentage, the amount of code it would actually be suggested that would get accepted by developers. Long story short, where we are today is obviously, AI is fairly ubiquitous in the enterprise SDLC and everybody's development workflows. And I think the ways that I see teams implementing it most effectively is not just as a point solution for when a developer is taking down a task from the backlog and completing that task and then, kind of handing it off for CI and on through the release process. But it's actually leveraging AI across the entirety of the SDLC. So it's not just helping me with implementing the capability, but it's also taking the first pass on QA. And so it's looking like, hey, are there any obvious improvements that can be made to the quality of the code that that's been built? And then further down the line, it's like, okay, am I not only doing static analysis, but interpreting the results and looking for needles in the haystack? Everybody's familiar with Veracode, scanning a tremendous amount of your code and giving you a bunch of a lot of noise back in some cases. And so AI can help you interpret that and find the actual signal there. And so my point is just, if you want to be, one of the ways that I've seen teams use AI really effectively is not just as this pair programmer or an agent in implementing capabilities, but it's also very much horizontally across everything that they're doing. And maybe that's just a testament to how much AI is having an impact on software engineering. And maybe you could just say what are the anti-patterns? And it's just the inverse of that, And maybe one thing that I would offer on top of that, which is maybe a little spicy, you've invited us to bring the spice. there was an article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, which is there was some conference that happened in New York City, and all these, executives and bright people come together, and what they're saying is like they're doing everything but growing headcount this coming year because they're basically in wait and see mode on, what impact AI is going to have on their business. And I would offer that that is very much an anti-pattern, and I think the bold case would be take a moment to consider your competitors rather than keeping headcount flat while or even in some cases reducing your headcount if you're actually like hiring into the curve. Right now you're increasing, if your backlog is dynamic and that you go out and find problems to solve for your customers that they're willing to pay you for. So now you have more work to do and greater capacity to do that if you're hiring into it. And so um, I would say it's definitely an anti-pattern to think that AI is going to displace human beings. And I would definitely encourage folks to do the opposite, which is to hire into this productivity boom.
Indeed, just like the old wisdom of you don't have to run faster than the bear. You just have to run faster than your whoever's with you, uh, your competitors, to be exact. So, thank you for that. Um, All right, so now that we have the opening questions out of the way, I want to just quickly mention that everybody who is here, welcome, welcome. We are collecting questions in chat. Feel free to type in chat if you're on YouTube. Type in YouTube chat as well. We'll compile the questions and we have 3 segments today. We're just past the first one. And in the third segment, we will do Q&A. So, sound good? All right. Next, we want to move into a pretty free-flowing section. I have prepared some questions for 1 or 2 of you at a time, but anyone who feels strongly about the question can jump in. After all, this is a fireside chat. This is the proof behind me. We are having a cozy chat here. We're not here to give a conference talk. We're not doing any of that. We're not doing diplomacy here. We just want to hear your thoughts as they come. So the first question I have, I kind of designed it for Dr. Chen and Dr. Bansal because you are in academia. So, but feel free to jump in again. So if you have to bet academically, will AGI emerge primarily from scaling LLMs? Or from explicit world models as we've seen happening more and more now? Or is it from experience-driven or embodied intelligence or something else? What do you think? Or do you think it's a bubble that's not ever going to come true at this point? So first to you, Dr. Chen, if you don't mind.
Okay, I can start with this, then Mohit can continue. The success of the modern deep learning technology is not coming from nowhere. Okay, it's actually had a very clear trace over the past many years, and we know where they came from. We know how they, come like this. I know we likely know uh, where we go in the short term. Long term, we don't know, but short term, we know. From that perspective, all this of fancy terminologies you just mentioned, it no matter going to be the LLM, the generative AI, the word model, such and such. Those are, the very natural evolution of many techniques, were developed in the past. I put it this way. And the people may have some, maybe over optimistic about what we could achieve in the future, but at least the people, gradually move toward that directions. So from that perspective, nothing are surprising to us. Okay, of course, there are many technology impress us, but nothing really surprising. We really understand why that is the case. However, um, people still question about the approach in the long run because we all understand the challenges in the future. No matter we talk about, for example, how skilled the model going to be, or if we have a better way to represent or more scalable way to represent the current technology such and such. Now, these fears or concerns are always there, no matter it's going to be the AI technology or any other technologies. We had a similar fear when we developed the semiconductor chips. We keep saying we're not be able to scale in this way or that way. We keep saying that for almost 5 decades. We keep worrying about we're not be able to deliver the next generation of the communication. We still find a way to deliver. Yeah, it's going to be there. Okay, not putting it this way. The biggest challenge to academia is like, in the current stage, most of the breakthrough came from industry. There may be some ideas from academia here or there, very scattering, but the major breakthrough came from industry. It's actually going to make a lot of leadership, team member in the academia start questioning about the position of the academic research in this competition. Or, what should we do? It's actually happened before when semiconductor enter tens of billion-dollar foundries. Most of the research in academia will just be very initial idea, prototype, not even prototyping, idea trials. And then they quickly move to the foundry because you just simply do not have any, available facility to validate your ideas. And now we're slowly move to that stage in the AI research. We don't know the answer yet, but we need to figure out in the following a couple years. So that is my perception. Yeah, I'll give Mohit to continue. So yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Bansal.
Thanks. Yeah. So the first part is what would I bet on academically? And then I'll go to the second part about academia and industry. So first of all, I feel like there's some sort of like fascination, unnecessary fascination of like choosing and putting these things in competition. Like, will it be like LLMs or will it be diffusion models or will it be like, right, world models versus something else? But first of all, I think we have to think more deeply. There's two different axes here, right? One is what architecture, right, and loss function are we using? And the second is what experiences and modalities are we bringing in, right? So these are sort of two independent axes. And even inside each of these axes, we don't have to assume that there'll be one sort of single, right, better approach than the other. For example, autoregressive models have their own advantages, as has been shown for several things, right, versus diffusion models. Another example is like VLMs, for example, right, which are vision language LLMs, are pretty much now accepted to be much better at being verifiers, right? And then you can use them as verifiers for things like world models and general, also diffusion models in general. There's also a lot of work now on trying to have better communication between auto-regressive, right, and multimodal LLMs and diffusion models, both from our lab and other places. So I feel like there are different advantages of different architectures and loss functions. But to the second part of your question, whether, right, in terms of experience driven and embodiment, yes, I'm completely agreeing and betting on that, that we do need all the richnesses of all the modalities, right, that we can get in terms of reward functions, right, and what environments, like I said in the first question that you asked me, right? I had a very specific focus on why true agents, as we move forward, will have much more interactions with environments, as if you remember the exact thing I mentioned, right, with the world. And this will make their experience trajectories much longer, for which they need to have much better state representations and memories across these sequences of states. So that's what I'm betting on. What exactly the architecture and the loss function needs to be behind those, right, is not important. So we don't have to, right, sort of fight between autoregressive versus diffusion as one example, because I think, right, the goal is higher than that. And then I guess Yiran was talking about academia versus industry, but that's not really part of the question, so I could skip that, or I can give some hot
But
takes on it.
feel free to respond. Like,
Yeah, I
please.
don't agree with what Iran said. I think academia has played a much bigger role, and there's many examples of that. But I do agree with him that it cannot be at small scale or insignificant scale, because then it's either true, like false positives or false negative ideas, right, will happen much more easily. Either it'll be a very bad idea that seemed good at small scale, or it'll be a very good idea that seemed bad at small scale, right? So false positives or false negatives. So that's in my lab also, we have a pretty strong belief in trying to be thinking of what's the next big thing that's important in the next few years, but trying to make sure that we do it at medium scale at least, right? If not large scale. And then a lot of a lot of the work gets taken up by industry and like is tried at much larger scale to get even better results. And even better is when better approach is now there's a lot of collaboration between academia and industry through internships or long-term collaborations or grants and gifts. And that's where we see the best of both worlds, right? Where the industry folks can go a little bit more crazy as opposed to driving that product and trying to only beat the competition on a certain benchmark. So they can also have a little bit more liberty through these academic collaborations, and obviously the academics get much more resources, right, to be able to scale their crazy ideas. So I think that's obviously the best form of collaboration, where both parties can do something different from what they can achieve on their own, and the whole becomes greater than the sum of the parts. So that's maybe my short answer.
Yeah, I'm hearing a little bit of convergence, but also convergence on there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a variety of approaches out there, which are all valid pathways toward to the future. But what would you say is your percentage on AGI being like a reality in the next few years, if you could give it? And this is for everybody. We keep hearing from Sam Altman, for example, right? AGI in 20, insert the number. What comes into your mind when you hear that?
I think we need to define AGI for that first, because in my world, we don't like
True.
to use that term. And we don't like that term because it's just an overhyped word. Like, I mean, we need to define what capabilities we are talking about, because different capabilities will have a very different answer of like projecting them coming to reality in how many years. So maybe, but I mean, maybe
Better
I'll just go
definition.
first.
Yes.
Just
Kevin, I see you come
yeah,
up from
I don't want to find myself in a position of,
No, please
talking
do.
about, I'm definitely not in a position to represent OpenAI at all in this conversation. But my understanding of AGI is an AI that can learn, reason, and apply knowledge across a wide range of tasks at or exceeding human level. So that is the definition, the working definition of AGI.
Okay.
So what level of humans, right? That's another maybe more fine-grained
Right.
definition.
Sure, expert humans in any given domain. I think what is interesting, and if I could just offer a brief comment, is there's a new benchmark that some folks may have seen that the OpenAI 5.2 model was trained against, which is called GDP eval. And what that is basically it's a benchmark that's supposed to represent real world economically productive tasks. And obviously by doing RL against those tasks, you can have a very spiky performance, as Dr. Bansal, I think, has pointed out a number of times. And so, I think the remaining task, I'm sure there are still many, and I don't represent, again, the research side of the organization or any side of the organization, but I think the remaining task is very much around generalizability, because you can, in some cases, exceed human expert performance on a very small subset of tasks.
Yeah, that's my main worry, right? As I said in the first answer I gave, that I mean, and again, I don't want to get into specifics of certain, right, sort of benchmarks and certain companies, but that's where over competition, right, leads you to where people will create their own benchmarks and then try to be the best on their own benchmark, and then there's no clarity of like what data has gone into the training of some of these models. So even if we ignore all of that, right, and let's assume that that's not happening, or that's just hard to
Well, is that really an anti-pattern? Because if it's if a private if a private organization is pursuing a specific set of benchmarks, one has to imagine that it is, and that at least the organization perceives that it's in their best interest, which means that it is most likely to meet the needs of their end users. And so it's like this is what give the people what they want. Is that's like the benchmarks that you're at least in
Right,
theory
but the
trying to meet.
problem is that none of these benchmarks so far actually have user tasks. These are all very well curated, right, sort of almost academic benchmarks, right? So that's the sort of irony of it, that then we say that, right, that they shouldn't be that academic, but then the benchmarks currently are still very sort of
Academic.
niche and specialized. And again, this
Yes.
has nothing to do with any specific company. But what I'm trying to say is that even if we assume that all the different, right, sort of models and companies have benchmarks that they are interested in, right, and they think their users are interested in, I still, right, don't see sort of the generalization element, right? So that's where maybe academia, like I said, can play a bigger role, where we can, right, in some sort of unbiased way and more universal way, right, try to challenge all of these models, right, like create benchmarks where all these models fail. And more importantly, they should be as close to the user as possible, because we also don't want to get into something which is over academic, right? Where it's some sort of benchmark that everything's failing at, but like maybe it's just too challenging and like too unrealistic and no one cares about in the real world. So that's, I think, another place where industry and academia actually collaborate really well. Because even when we collaborate with right, all these sort of big companies, either through internships of our PhD students or other ways, in fact, they are actually very interested in using these collaborations for creating benchmarks, because right, it makes everyone's lives easier. But the challenge has always been like how to bring in the user data, right? Because obviously that's very, very, right, confidential and has other issues. Uh,
Yes.
so I think that's an open and interesting question, which is not spicy, right? It's actually the real question. Is like how do we create benchmarks that both test generalizability but are also as close to the user? I mean, in the sense that their challenge comes from generalizability across users and across tasks, as well as closeness to the user, as opposed to being very challenging in a very niche and unrealistic or over academic way, right? So to me,
Yes.
those are the two main axes that benchmark should cover.
Jeff, any reactions?
Yeah, I think my comment would be that um, I think that that phrase is really overloaded with interpretation based on the consumer, the person that's listening and or trying to answer the question. Not that anyone's biased. I don't mean it that way. I just mean that, if I was going to talk to someone who didn't have any knowledge about AI and show them a very simplistic automation workflow, like an N8N or whatever, that gave them an automated capability they could not personally do on their own, they would literally think, I'll call that AGI. And I don't know that I would tell them they were wrong. I don't know that it would meet an academic or even a commercial definition, but for them, their interpretation, that was pretty amazing. And we can do that today. Um, I think we all know what we mean when we say AGI, but we can't define it necessarily. And I know that it can be defined. I'm just saying at a high level, I believe it's somewhat in the eye of the observer what this means. Maybe there's an answer that is, a standardized definition, but I don't know that anyone would really necessarily care. I think it turns into, in my use case, in my particular example, in my experience, am I feeling like I have something close to that? And I know that Altman and others, not just OpenAI, have talked about what they're trying to get to and where they think they are in that timeline. And the timeline shrinks and grows as things change. Um, I just feel like that word ends up being a hot button, and I think what the reality is probably more easily defined. But I almost feel like we want it to be a standard. That's my comment.
Well, I just want to remind everybody that actually OpenAI has its own definition about the five levels of AGI, right, Kevin? regarding its agent, the innovators, organizers, such and such. I do not try to,
Well,
link
hold
this
on,
one
hold
to a
on.
particular
I,
company.
I just
Yes.
want to quickly clarify that Kevin is not here to represent OpenAI. Okay, so I'm gonna.
I understand. Yeah.
No, yeah, no, I don't mean any disrespect
Mm.
either. I just clarify that everybody's here to speak their mind, and OpenAI will come up in those conversations inevitably. Uh, so definitely that Kevin is going to bring his perspectives both from the OpenAI world and from his own. So speaking of the benchmarks and connecting to the real world, and where the definitions get fuzzy, I think a very real and very tangible thing that we can talk about is what business value does AI bring to today's world, right? Because we're hearing a lot of reports that AI is actually a net negative on the society. If you all things considered, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of unrealized value, if you will. So I want to bring Jeff and Kevin into this question with me. First to you, Jeff. From your perspective, where is AI delivering real value these days, and where are organizations struggling to move beyond pilots?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. In fact, there's an MIT paper from just this past summer talking about the fact that 95% of real world AI implementations were not delivering P&L value. And that's an interesting statistic, and that may or may not be 100% accurate. It may be the sample that they, whatever. I think what I've seen with clients that we've done consulting for in real world implementations, a few things I can say pretty confidently. There's a productivity benefit for individual users to utilizing AI, and that productivity benefit is different for different users, different people, and it depends. Some folks are really good at understanding how to prompt and interact and continue to prompt and reprompt and get useful value out of an AI chat session, and that's a productivity gain. And Kevin mentioned, the idea of pair programming with an AI. As a software developer and sort of an architect, I can tell you there's value there. There's also a cliff there. And what I mean by that is if you just try to one-shot an application with most basic LLMs, you may not get shippable code. But if you take a different approach and you use it as a pair programmer and you keep the context small, which is one of the keys, you can get pretty productive pretty quickly. And you can have good code coverage and a bunch of other things. So there's a productivity benefit, I think, for individuals across the board for the most part. Maybe not for a, a mail delivery carrier. Maybe that's a difficult use case. But for general, we'll say knowledge workers, I think the productivity is there. I think what businesses have been missing recently, we just actually released a white paper earlier this month about this topic. But there's been a lot of rush to do bolt-on capability with AI and a lot of piloting. And so people see a technology, whether that's a product that they purchase or they see, an article. There's a link right there for the state of business in AI. That's the reference I was talking about for MIT in the chat. Taking a bolt-on, making a pilot out of it, trying to use, just a generic capability without integrating into your systems, without figuring out how your data needs to be used or cleaned before you can use it. Those sorts of things are where the failures are happening. Where I see success is companies that are taking a strategic approach to AI, that actually step back and instead of just throwing out a pilot within 90 days to meet a fictitious particular deadline, they're looking at it and saying, okay, where could we as an organization take advantage of AI? Where are we going to get really good benefit right now? What can we get value out of? Let's pilot that. And what areas, at the same time in that conversation, what areas can we not see value today with existing AI in our business? So we don't go near those areas and we don't try to do things that we believe will probably not be successful for us. I think if you do that, and we've worked with clients to try and work through this process. You get a few good positive wins, the company gets some productivity benefits at the employee level, and then potentially, depending on your automation and other things, you might even see some P&L benefit because you took a smaller strategic approach. You then get a bit of a snowball effect. The employees see value, the employees see their own productivity, but also see that the business took a nice balanced approach. And then the next thing that you look to do inside that company has a better overall adoption. Because there's a lot of failed projects where the employees immediately go, oh, forget it, this AI doesn't work, it's all hype, and they stop. And that's probably more detrimental than a slower approach. Hope that helped.
Kevin, your reaction? Thank you.
No, I love that. It's just by way of the process that Jeff was describing, canvassing an organization, soliciting use cases from business units, stack ranking them across a number of dimensions. One of the most important dimensions, not just business impact, but like actual technical feasibility. Can the tech actually do this thing? And then going after it. And maybe, you kind of do like a debt snowball thing, except with use cases. And you're like, okay, well, let's tackle the more simple use cases first that we know are highly achievable, still impactful, and work our way up the scale instead of down the stack. So that's definitely something that resonates. We see a lot of it. I do also, it felt like the question you're asking up front was also like, what is the value of AI in broader society? Because it's being, there's a little bit of like negative press on it. Is that part of the prompt?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, I want to take a swing at that because some time ago I got really wrapped up in an exciting use case by John Deere. And it's just like I mean, if you've ever been to John Deere, they are just this amazing company who is the salt of the earth people, super bright and solving problems that impact every person every day by way of the food supply chain. And one of the most amazing use cases, there are two that I'll mention just super fast. One of the most amazing use cases is called See and Spray. And so basically they have this $1 million harvester tractors that they drive through these fields autonomously. And these See and Spray booms can crawl like fingers. It's like it's from the Matrix. They crawl through the field and basically identify the crop and apply fertilizer to the crop and pesticides to the weeds surgically, right? And so you don't just have to, which is historically just kind of like send a plume of pesticide across the field in order to kill the plants, and you genetically modify the crop so that they're not affected by that pesticide. So you can just imagine in terms of the cost savings for the farmers because they don't have to apply as much pesticide and they have greater yield from the crops that are properly fertilized. And they take some of that cost savings and reinvest it further in R&D, but they also pass along some of those savings to the consumer. I know that's a hard story to swallow right now, given the inflation that we have for whatever, for reasons. But that is just an amazing way that AI is being applied to just, like produce more food for less for people. And that is a good thing. And I think one of their use cases that get closer maybe to LLM, since that's, topic du jour, is one of the things that they're doing also is, these are, again, $1 million machines. If you've ever met a farmer, my neighbor happens to be a farmer, amazing human being. He is swinging that hammer from freaking like 5 o'clock in the morning. My wife's like, get out of bed. What are you doing? All you do is tap on that keyboard. This guy's out there. But, when you're working on $1 million machine, he's not yet at that scale, but when you're working on $1 million machine, the documentation is immense. And so one of the great use cases John Deere has rolled out is actually making that documentation available to the farmers or the engineers who are fixing these machines more readily. And so it just makes it a lot easier to patch the machine, make a fix. It gives you you take a picture of what's broken or you describe the symptoms. It'll take you to the doc, suggest the fix, et cetera. The DIY accept that at scale. And so there are tons of real world impacts. Every organization that I go into the problem is that they have too many use cases. And to Jeff's point, it's all about narrowing that down and getting finding those use cases that are going to have the highest impact with the highest probability of success. And so, I see a lot of good things that are coming out of the technology. Everybody has a personal use case. They're like, hey, this crazy symptom popped up, and I used chat to get some information before I went to speak to my my primary care provider, and that's incredibly valuable. I can tell you, anyway, anecdotes abound, but that's where we are.
Yeah, your point is very well taken. There's a lot of real cases of AI making impact in the world. It is looking back at on the year, right? Because we're gathered here to look back at 2025, and this question is for everybody, by the way. What trend or development in AI, in your eyes, has made the biggest impression on you? That makes you go, wow, that's something that's special. That was not in 2024. And I will give the mic to Dr. Bansal because I know he has recently traveled and is still recovering from a cold. So, Dr. Bansal, you have the floor.
I'm still actually thinking, so feel free, others can feel free.
Okay,
That's
absolutely.
a
And
big, tough question, like summarizing the whole year. So
yeah, it's a big question. My apologies. I just
no, no,
know
yeah,
that you have to go
it's a
soon,
good
and I
question.
want to get your take on this kind of look back question. But feel free to jump in and
Yeah, feel free to go ahead, others. I'm also,
yeah, and it's a crazy year. We have a lot happen this year. We have I can't even remember how many times I've been middle of the night looking at a new model or something new released, and it quote unquote completely changes the game, right? There's
I have one.
okay, go for it.
I bit of a hot take, but just from an opinion perspective, based on what I've been doing, I don't think we're done, but I think tool use for me has been pretty impactful in 2025 versus 2024. A lot of work still to be done. Definitely early days, but I think we see the value of being able to enhance context uh, on the fly, being able to give the capability for the LLM to reach out for external data, for
Mm,
real-time information, and integrate that. I think that structure, whether you call it MCP or that's not
mm,
relevant to me. I'm specifically just talking high level about the ability for the LLM and the structure to utilize tools externally in real time. To me, that feels like a pretty big game changer and a level change, a step change in what the systems are capable of doing. And that, again, from 24 to 25, I look forward eagerly to a little bit more maturity, some security, and extra things around tool use coming in 26. Um, and then I'll add to that uh, agentic commerce, which is a variant of tool use, in my
ooh,
opinion. But the idea that um, I'll pick on ChatGPT for the moment, that you can be in a chat, ask it for, what are the top three products of X at this price point. It shows you those three products, and very shortly, you'll be able to say, "Great, buy that for me," and move on with your day, and won't have to go surf 14 websites and do research. That's pretty compelling. I know that's an individual consumer use case, but the idea that that level of autonomy and tool use is coming for me is pretty powerful. So that's my vote.
yeah, I think if I had to sort of continue that, I think that's something that I actually agree with. In fact, going a little bit more deeper in that discussion, I feel like there was a big challenge for getting external knowledge or context to be useful for these models. Even if we connect it to things like RAG, right, retrieval augmented generation, there was this big challenge of how to handle the conflict between the internal parametric knowledge of the model, right, versus external knowledge. So there's been a lot of good sort of progress in that related to what Jeff was just saying. And this connects also to multi-tool and like I think there's been a lot of good progress in mixture of experts and mixture of tools. Right, I don't want to use the word agents again, but mixture of agents, right, is another term that we are going forward with. Right, the idea of being able to. So I'm betting also a lot in terms of having this future where we have a big library, right? Just when we have a like, just like we have a library of right when we are doing code, we have a library of functions. We'll have a library of agents, right, and experts, where different companies, different academics, right, will keep contributing different expert models to this library, as opposed to this fascination or right sort of push for one single monolithic model that will save the world, right, and be AGI. that's just not feasible unless all companies start working together, because there'll always be some models that will be good at something versus other models. So I'm still betting pretty heavily on having this sort of library of different experts and agents, and then the bigger innovations will be on the side of the planner and the router, which will basically decide that for any given unseen, out of domain, generalizable question or task that comes in, a new situation, that we've never seen before. Now its job is to figure out, given this new situation or question, what skills does it need, and then go back to the library of agents and figure out what agents have those specific fine-grained skills, and then do a selection of the subset of those experts, also figure out which order to call these experts in. And sometimes it will not just be a sequence, it will be some complex pattern, like I'll call these two agents first, their outputs will get combined and go into the third agent, or the third expert. So it can be various patterns of tool calls, if you want to call it that, right? Tool calls is another word for it. So I call it different patterns of tool calls. It can be various complex shapes of patterns. Two tools get called, both of their outputs go into the third tool, which goes into the fourth tool, but then the fourth tool can call the fifth and sixth tool in parallel, all of those patterns. So then all those tools give their output. And then the second part is the aggregator or the orchestrator, whose job is to take all the outputs of these different tools and be able to figure out what order should they be placed in. And more importantly, some of these will be disagreeing with each other, Some of them will have debates among each other. So how to put all of that together, decide which tool calls to not trust much more than other tool calls, and go to the final answer. So this whole process has had actually a lot of progress in the last 1 year, and we should be betting very highly on this as sort of a much more natural workflow of agents.
You also mentioned
So
earlier
this has
that
actually created a lot of impact already in areas, even including, so we have an NSF AI Institute on education, how to use AI, to improve engagement in the classroom. As well as we have a big NIH project on early disease prediction. So things like lupus, for example, a very, very complex autoimmune disease, which is actually very, very multimodal, multi-tool, multi-organ, You need to actually have diagnosis information, MRI scans, CT scans, kidney scans, doctor's notes, medical history, hundreds of things from various parts of the body to be able to do a better diagnosis. And our team has a lot of very well-known doctors too, and in fact they have been very pleasantly surprised, more than us, in terms of what some of these mixture of agent approaches are able to do, again with the doctor in the loop. But the kind of help and reasoning, and diverse reasoning especially, that they're able to provide to the doctors actually has been very positive in their opinion, in the doctor's opinions.
it's a very hopeful future that I for one, am 100% for. Any reactions from Kevin, Dr. Chen? Feel free to jump in if you want. And I know Dr. Bansal is still under the weather, so if you have to leave early, by all means. We again thank you so much for your participation. And
yeah, I think the jet lag is getting to me, so at some point I'll probably start blabbering, if not already, hopefully not already. So, but I'm still intrigued by all the discussion going on, so I'll stick around for a few minutes.
Okay.
Dr. Chen, I want to offer you the chance before I stomp all over the chance myself.
Yes, thank you so much, Kevin. I think the biggest thing impressed me is about the fear of the whole AI community of being left behind. If you look at the technology transfer time period, now it's only about 2 to 3 months, starting from the ideas was proposed to being used in the major product in the industry. It's happening starting from speculative decoder, recently diffusion LLM, and such and such. And if for people who are familiar with the news of the AI industry today, there is a big news. Manta acquired Manus with a couple $1 billion just a couple hours ago. I checked my record. in this April, literally about 8 months, I had a conversation with the CEO of Manus because of all my friends, trying to buy their services. So I linked them together. I mean, the CEO of Manus with my friends. Within 8 months, they actually sold the company with multiple million dollars. That's incredible. Okay. Whether the company is worth that money or not, with 100 million ARR, I'm not quite sure, but they can clearly see the fears of the method of being left behind compared with OpenAI or Google or Microsoft such and such. I think this trend will continue. If you look at the Nvidia spent $20 billion by Grok just a couple days ago. It's basically it's based on the same logic. The company was just raised their fund with a $7 billion. Then the Nvidia pay 3 times or higher to buy the company because they're fear about their competitor to buy the company and also challenge their position. We'll see those again in the 2026. On another side, the whole entrepreneurship market became very unfriendly to the grassroots, entrepreneurs because the 816 or the saying that they're not going to invest in any company which cannot really make $100 million ARR within 18 months. So that's give people a lot of think about how people think about this, hype of AI. That was actually the most impressive thing. Well, the algorithms, the market, there are many technologies were invented, but those technologies can be invented this year, can be invented next year, we keep moving that. But people has the clock tick in their mind about when this banquet will finish, and they try to actually grab the food as much as they could before it's complete. That's my impression. Yeah. Sorry, Kevin.
Kevin, you want to go from there?
Yeah. Tough to follow. Maybe what I would, maybe just to reinforce one of the points that Dr. Chen made around, incumbents, social media providers feeling the pressure. One technology that I'm sheepish to admit, but one of the things that I'm most excited about this year, separate from reasoning, which we could talk about in a moment, is just multimodality. I think that the image models have like just passed the uncanny valley. My wife and I the other day used it in a personal context to generate the picture of a family picture of us with our children in a place that we actually had never traveled to. It was just amazing, like how it was able to carry us forward. And there's tons of commercial applications. I think that tech came a long way. Video has it, the video is just astounding as well. And huge commercial applications are super fun. So yeah, folks, incumbents are definitely feeling a little bit of angst, I think, at that degree of progress happening elsewhere. And then, of course, just to reinforce the points that Dr. Bansal and Jeff had made, is just around like tool calling, getting us a lot of the way toward better model performance. I think one of the other things that underpins that is test time compute, and I think reasoning has certainly gone mainstream this year. It's like anytime I'm trying to solve a hard problem now, I'm using a lot of test time compute. And so, that would be maybe technology number two that just has gone mainstream, and I've been super excited about in terms of unlocking more complex use cases.
I'm in the same camp. Nano Banana is my most impressed moment of the year. So I want to move the conversation to 2026. Looking ahead to 2026 in just a few days, what are your top 3 predictions for AI in terms of technology, in terms of adoption, you name it, in terms of impact? Do you have a list of things that you're watching today? Do you have predictions of what's just around the corner? And that's again to everybody here.
Maybe I'll take that first and then take your leave, since I'm going to get useless soon. But yeah, I think luckily also because I sort of was the only one who already had that question in my introduction, right? Of like what's the overhyped, and then also what's the underhyped thing that will become important soon. So I still would repeat most of that without repeating it, right? In terms of like true definition of agents being able to handle, right, much more long-term states and and memory over them, as well as long-term, more complex, right, sort of like I said, context retrieval, tool patterns, all the way to leading, right, to things like long-term reputation of agents, deception, right? All these things will become much more prominent. Like these capabilities will become much more capable, right, when we have this kind of better state representation, right, long-term state representation and memory in agents. And then going back to the sort of multimodal aspect, right, just as Kevin was mentioning a minute ago, video generation, right, has become really, really advanced now, and we work actually a lot in that area. We had some of the very earliest long video generation papers, right, much before any sort of big mainstream tech companies. My point is slightly different, where I think we'll have to start discussing the safety implications of this much more strongly in the very near future. Right, definitely in the next few months, if not right next year, because you are probably seeing this trend where generated videos on Facebook, right, and if you go and see their comments, even like 2 or 3 months ago, it would have the opposite trend where I would be surprised, right, how people are not understanding that this is sort of AI generated. And now we're already on the flip side where, right, I mean, everyone starts saying everything is AI generated, even though sometimes it's actually not, because they just don't want to believe
Right.
anything is true anymore. Which is what I was telling someone last year, that this is what we are going to reach a stage with where no one trusts anything. So that's at least one small aspect of safety, right? Where that's the first step of like at least people should not trust anything, right, till there's proof that this is AI generated versus human generated. So those kinds of more harder questions about, right, these cannot be solved with just watermarking and these kinds of simple solutions, because everything can be reverse engineered or faked, right? So I think then we'll have to start going to more complex solutions, like right, just like right, in terms of like cybersecurity, like the solutions of having keys, right, and personal keys and shared keys, right, in terms of having lockable watermarks that can be unlocked with certain keys, right? These kinds of things will be a big discussion, because I wanted to end with, right, some notion of safety of AI. So maybe I'll stop there.
One quick comment is my wife and I do now have a safe word where if I call and ask her to transfer, some money or something, that because I'm in a tough spot, now we can exchange that.
Yeah, it's like a personal key.
Exactly. So that's what I was actually referring to. Like we'll have to have notions of personal keys even for things like video generation, because watermarking on its own will be breakable.
Yes.
I can try and answer unless the panelists. I don't want to keep going early, so if you guys want to go, I'll wait. No, you're good.
Everyone's good. Go for it.
I mentioned this a little while ago, but I do think that I'm actually looking forward to hoping to see some functionality with agentic commerce come to fruition in 2026. I'd like to see that actually start to hit the market, and it'll be in its infancy, and there'll be mistakes. Fine. I'm not too concerned about perfection. I'm encouraged by the collaboration I'm seeing with various competitors, but also other industry partners, et cetera, in trying to make that real. In other words, if you look at the agentic commerce protocol and the uh, AP2 agent purchase protocol, sorry, which is a subset of the agent to agent, the number of players involved, Stripe, eBay, et cetera, that's great to see. What it means to me is that it's actually getting to be more mainstream, more visible, and we'll get more powerful players involved. So we'll end up with good security. We'll end up with wider adoption, et cetera. I think one of the first two places that are going to probably have agentic commerce set up is Etsy, uh, eBay, and boy, I'm really spacing it. Shopify. And if you're a business owner and you've got a Shopify website, once the protocol structure is in place, your products will be available to show up inside of an agentic commerce, ChatGPT or other. And you personally won't have to do a whole heck of a lot of heavy lifting. That's exactly the level of integration I think we need to see in order to move these things forward. Having it be an island, OpenAI does their own and Claude does that's not the right way to move the industry forward. It may be the right way for them to differentiate. I don't disagree they should, but I think the standardization helps all of us. And so I really want to see more of that in 2026. And that would be my second one. And the third one is a little bit on the safety side. I actually think part of what you'll see in some of those commerce protocols is there's a pretty significant amount of security necessary in order to make that be safe. Right? You've got the agent, the LLM, whatever you want to say, has the ability to process a transaction on your behalf. That probably shouldn't be easily done with just a few words. There's probably more involved there. And I'd like to see that grow. I'd like to see that level of, when we started in 2022, it was kind of the Wild Wild West, and I think it should have been because things were nascent and we needed to get out there and, see what was viable. But as we move forward, I'd like to continue to see a little bit more maturity on the safety and security side, and I think that that's probably going to make progress in 26. I don't think we'll be done. I think we'll have ways to go. Those are my three.
Awesome. Either of you, Kevin, Dr. Chen, if you have any strong predictions.
Maybe Kevin go first, since he gave me the opportunity first in the last one.
All right. Well, I'll just be super fast then. I think 2026. I just, off the cuff here, more of instead of the same, more of more, which is we're going to continue to see exponential, not linear scaling of capabilities across each of the dimensions that matter most to us. Folks have mentioned memory, test time, compute duration, and just kind of core model capabilities in terms of intelligence. So more of that. And what I hope to see also is less overhang. I think kind of tongue in cheek, one of the folks that people across the organization can mention is people are still going to ChatGPT and they go to 5.2 Pro and ask it the weather. And it's like, no, this thing is capable of all this amazing, it's the #1 math competitor in the world. And I'm like, what's the weather, right? Anyway, it's just a tongue in cheek, but there is a tremendous amount of AI overhang in terms of what folks are using the models for and what they're capable of. And so in 2026, we'll see less overhang. Folks will begin to chomp away at that and figure out this AI deployment thing. And then last but not least is I think one of the domains I'm most excited about is cybersecurity, both offensive and defensive. And I think we're going to continue to see that explode in terms of people's interests and the capabilities that come to bear.
Dr. Chen?
Yeah. Okay, there are my three things. The first one is also relevant to the cybersecurity, but in a broader context, also about agent. I believe the agentic AI will actually engage with a stable coin or other cryptocurrency market to make sure those things will actually, offer the high frequency transaction and redefine the data market, because the value of the data is now defined by the cost of data production, but by the true value of the data. From that perspective, there are no any other technology will be able to offer such, the ambitious goal to redefine the value. The second one is about the wide application of a generative AI, because it's not about synthesized data. It's also about how you can accelerate reform the creativity or creative work or people are doing. Just give one example. In China, the designer has not just used AI to synthesize the new data, plot the figures. They're not doing any creative work. They just ask the AI to generate the 500 different pictures, they pick the one they want, and they believe that's the most creative one and start working on that. the AI already played a very important role in the creative work. It's unlike people thought before. So this is, this process will become more powerful in 2026, particularly in many applications like e-commerce, like the on the online entertainment such and such. This is my second prediction. My third prediction will be the hotter competition in AI infrastructure because everybody know NVIDIA charge us, the huge premium because of their monopoly the market. I know how much, OpenAI or any other company pay, for those things. And so that's the AI infrastructure will become, the, 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 the battlefield for many companies, trying to shoot down the cost and also to lower the barrier so that people are able to, um, enable the wide adoption of the AI technology. Those are my three predictions.
Thank you, thank you. And thanks to all of you, honestly, for your very candid opinions and very transparent sharing. It's very, very, it can be rare at these times because everybody seems to coming from a particular angle sometimes these days. It is very making certain conversations very awkward or very opaque. Sometimes it feels like, and for us as a nonprofit organization, our missions are innovation, connection, and education. We want to bring AI to the masses. We want to break down the barriers. We want to eliminate the biases and getting to the ground level of where things are happening, and that is the whole reason that we're doing things like this today. So on that note, I'm going to bring into some questions. We've gotten a lot of questions from the audience. Thank you everybody who submitted your questions on YouTube, on in the Zoom meeting chat. Thank you. So if you wouldn't mind scrolling through the questions, audience members, and click a thumbs up to the question that you want answered, it's very much appreciated. It will help us prioritize the questions because there's no way that we can get through all of them, every single one of them, but we'll try our best. And so far, I'm seeing the top voted question right now is directed towards Dr. Chen. It's from Max Fan. The question reads, "Hey, Dr. Chen, I have a question regarding data privacy. If every edge device keeps the data to itself, how to get the data to train the model?" I think it's getting at the point that if you decentralize data, where's the efficiency?
Oh, I can answer so quickly. Technology-wise, you don't have to really offer, the raw data. You just need to transfer the features, to the centralized server to train the model. The trade-off is how much information you want to share and how much, the risk you want to impose. There are always a trade-off like this. There's also some other technology to incorporate, so you encrypt the data so that you can basically protect the data, from end to end. So the communication part will not be able to leak any information. In short, there are many ways to do it, but they all have the pros and cons. Yeah.
Thank you. The second question comes from Edward Guo, and I think it speaks for a lot of us, which is they want to ask an ethical question. What is the one sincere piece of advice or concern you would share with someone feeling lost, feeling overwhelmed in the current AI moment? It doesn't have to be technical. It can be philosophical. It could be career related. There's a lot of new grads looking for directions now. It could be personal. Anything on that note?
I will take a swag at this.
Kevin, you're coming in a little quiet on my end.
Okay,
Could you
it might have been all
adjust?
night. That's these headphones. I'm still back in the 90s on my headphones, but I promise AGI soon.
Oh, there you go. Yep, it's better now.
Okay, lovely. Okay, so just it doesn't answer. I'll be super brief because it doesn't answer the question of like what to do if you're new grad or you're in college and you're looking to set up a career. So I'll get out of the way. But one thing that I just recently did that I'm finding actually is helping me a lot mentally is actually shutting off all the podcasts shutting off X and blocking it on my on everything, and just like focusing on the problems that I know that I can actually have an impact on. And that's been very clarifying for me. And I've been able to like do some of my best thinking since having done that. And the world is changing around me, and I feel pretty confident that like I'm just getting access to the information that I need to solve problems that I can specifically influence. So that's just a personal, offering a personal anecdote.
Yeah, taking a digital detox sometimes helps.
Just a quick comment to that. This isn't mine at all. This is this has been around for decades, but may help you frame this a little bit. But you're the master of what you keep to yourself and the slave of what you say. And if you just replace say with share, perhaps some thought before posting everything everywhere all the time.
Very wise words. Moving on to the next question from Tim. I feel like a lot of people will want to know, as AI systems increasingly handle analysis, decisions, and content generation, which human skills will remain economically irreplaceable in the long term?
Kevin goes silent. I'm just teasing, Kevin.
Prompting skills, probably, if I have to.
Yeah, you're suggesting that prompt engineering, and I think I would still suggest that creativity is innate, and when I say that, what I mean is, in order for right now for the LLM to respond to you, you have to prompt it, you have to ask it something, and that asking is the creative initial piece. You may ask it what to ask, but that's still a little creative. You may decide to merge two pieces or trains of thought or topics and ask for information. You're still executing that creative spark, that initial idea. That then you're using this assistant in order to help you with data integration and potentially brainstorming. But you started it. You were still the spark. And I think that that will continue even as things get better.
I will add to that. Sometimes it's not the rocket science that trips up the LLMs on the market today. It's the mundane, the day to day. The there are two different groups running the what do they call it? The machines that sell stuff, and AI runs it, and both ran it to the ground, right? So it's giving things for free, not knowing a genuine question from a probing malicious question, and maybe where to step as a robot, where is real ground, where is the shadow, coming from automated driving challenges sometimes. Oddly, some of the more mundane side of things seem to trip things up.
Can I?
Yep.
I know we're up to time. Just super briefly, I think one thing is obviously going to remain important, as it always has, is people and being able to connect with people and connect people to each other. And so, in addition to your hard skills that you're searching for, like where can you stay grounded there, I encourage you to consider continuing to invest in soft skills, because they will remain important even in an AGI world.
Excellent. On that note, I'm going to wrap things up for now. I'm very sorry that we couldn't get to all the excellent questions in the chat. We'll find a way to relay those questions. I noticed that a lot of questions are directed to certain panelists tonight, so we'll relay the questions. But for now, we are unfortunately out of time. I will invite Mr. Guoliang Cao, President of RTAI, to give closing comments.
Thank you, Henan. So I will be brief. Thank you all for joining us tonight for this remarkable conversation. To our distinguished panelists, Dr. Yiran Chen Dr. Mohit Bansal, Mr. Jeff Torello, and Mr. Kevin Alwell. Thank you for sharing your invaluable insights and perspectives. You've given us so much to think about as we navigate this extraordinary era of AI advancement. And also a special thank you to Dr. Henan Li for expertly guiding tonight's discussions and drawing out such thoughtful responses from our panel. Research Triangle AI Society is committed to fostering AI knowledge, ethical practices, and community connection in our region. So we host conferences, seminars, and events throughout the year. So yeah, please stay connected and don't miss our future events. So as we say goodbye to 2025 and hello to 26, so we are excited to continue this journey with you. So here is to another year of innovation, learning, and community. So thank you, and have a wonderful evening.